This is Film Courage, episode number 147. My name is David Brand. I don't, I'm so used to you jumping in there, Karen. I forgot I was being queued up here today. You can find our archives on iTunes, filmcourage.com, latalkradio.com, and Movie Garage.
And my name is Karen Warden. I was just about to throw in something spontaneous that I love it when you open the show, and you almost didn't open the show.
See,
so
this is why I try not to open the show.
But I have to ask you, David, what was your favorite video game growing up?
My favorite, I'm a big NBA Live person. I'm a basketball fan, and I used to play NBA Live, and you're already like thinking, what? You don't even know what NBA Live is.
Well, I'm not a sports fan, but I remember what I used to play. I had a Texas Instrument. I know, it's a long time ago, and I used to play Q*bert, and I
used to love Q*bert.
Yeah, I
used to love Q*bert. I mean,
it was really cool.
But I'm trying to think of playing on the Texas Instrument. I'm not familiar with that. Yeah,
it had like a little plug-in, joystick, and it had its own little console, and you would plug it into your TV, and you can play it that way. So it was very cool. Well, our guests today have made a film generating lots of talk in the indie gaming community, and that's a long ways off from Q*bert or Pole Position or Super Mario Brothers. Lisanne Pajot and James Swirsky, writers, directors, editors, and cinematographers for one of this year's Sundance films entitled Indie Game the Movie, join us via telephone.
Indie Game the Movie follows the dramatic journeys of indie game developers as they create games and release those works in themselves to the world. Introverted and obsessed with their game projects, these developers divulge information about the beginnings of their creativity and their upbringing.
Lisanne and James successfully raised large sums of money in 2 Kickstarter campaigns, one in the summer of 2010 where they exceeded their $15,000 goal by raising over $23,000.
And in June of 2011, they reached out to the community again through Kickstarter with another pre-order campaign to help with finishing costs of the film, and the response was overwhelming. This time, the gaming community came through again, and they reached their $35,000 goal in just over 24 hours.
Wow.
Which I just can't believe.
That's just amazing.
The campaign closed with over 200% of its goal, over $71,000, enlisting the help of nearly 1,600 backers.
Welcome via telephone, Miss Lisanne Pajot and Mr. James Swirsky. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Great intro.
We haven't seen the entire film, but the trailers and the various interviews that we've seen look incredible. And, the footage looks amazing, and the story is intriguing. So this is one of our 2012 must-sees.
Absolutely. And the music there, too. We had to sneak in as much of that music as we could for that opening part
really
there.
Cool.
You can connect with Lisanne on Twitter, at Lisanne Pajot, and James at James Swirsky, and also make sure you follow Indie Game Movie.
Well, first off, congrats on Sundance. It's an
thank you.
Amazing feat. And when do you go? When do you arrive there?
We leave early Wednesday morning, and then the film premieres on Friday.
Friday night.
Friday afternoon, yeah. So that'll be really the first time that an audience will have seen the film, the first time that we'll see it in the theater ourselves. So it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually, yesterday, we did a count of how many people have seen this film, and we counted about 35 people. Oh. So it's like a ridiculously small sample size of people that we're working with right now. So far, 35 out of 35 people have liked it, which is good, but it's so small. And so it'll be so amazing to actually show it to hundreds of people, or over 1,000 by the end of it. So it should be awesome.
No, I mean, you guys are bursting on the scene. I mean, can you first take us back? When and how did you find out the news about Sundance?
Oh, we were actually showing the film to a couple of characters in the film. They live in Santa Cruz, California. Edmund McMillan and his wife, and another character was there, Tommy Reffanese. And so we just shown them the film. The day before. Yeah. And then we were at a Starbucks in Santa Cruz, downtown. We're from Winnipeg, so it's lovely there. And we were sitting in a Starbucks, and we got the call. And it was very kind of surreal. It was surreal to get compliments about your film from, people that watch 500 docs a year. That was kind of bizarre.
And it's kind of the typical, like, because I've read stories of other Sundance people, hearing the news, and they talk about, just getting overwhelmed and inexplicably, breaking into tears. And that's kind of what we did. So we were in a Starbucks, and we just ended up kind of, in the most, respectful way possible, sobbing in the corner of it. Wow. We must have looked like freaks or like a couple that's breaking up, but we're both very sad about it. And so it's an amazing, surreal experience to have that happen, because it doesn't feel real. Even right now, it doesn't feel real, but it will soon.
It certainly is real. And when you guys submitted the film, I mean, did you have any indication that you guys were going to get into the festival? Because we all know the only way to get into Sundance is you have to know somebody. So who was the connection that put you guys over the top? Was it Kevin Smith?
Oh, we had no idea. When we started this project, our goals were pretty humble. Like, all we wanted to do was make a film, and we knew that there was an audience online because of the first Kickstarter campaign, and we thought we were going to market it online, and that's sort of where it would live. And the idea of festivals didn't really become present to us at all until maybe after we'd done the majority of shooting and we were editing, and we were like, well, maybe we should try to debut this somewhere. And so we worked really hard and crunched really hard to try to get it together for the Toronto Film Festival, which we didn't get in. And that was a big rush. That was a lot of stress because, everything had sort of heightened at that point. Like, our goals were modest initially, but because there had been so much attention about the film and people had gotten really excited, we thought, oh, well, are we doing ourselves a disservice by not attempting to premiere at a festival? This is our first feature. We haven't really done the festival circuit or any of the sales stuff or anything like that. So, so we sort of approached it. Our expectations kind of changed as we were making it.
I mean, did you guys almost not submit to Sundance? I mean, did you almost say, you know what, let's just forget the festivals? I mean, how close were you to that end of the game?
Pretty close, actually. Yeah, like we're from Canada, and we kind of our initial dream premiere at one point in production was kind of we thought, if we're going to be able to do a big premiere anywhere, it would be Toronto, because we kind of have a little bit of a home field advantage, and they feature Canadian content, and we kind of thought to ourselves, if we can't make it in Toronto, well, then there's no way we can make it into Sundance, because it's just because Toronto turned us down. But Toronto did see a different cut of the film, and we kind of, the film was just getting better and better, and we were encouraged to, they said some wonderful things about it, and, they said it's great and they like it, but it just doesn't fit this year.
It was interesting. It wasn't really ready. We had been only editing it for less than 3 months when we showed Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, it's sort of a lesson in a way. You don't want to show, that early of a cut to a film programmer, because they might, just write you off. Because there's a lot of work to do still on the film. Most films take months and months to cut. And really ours ended up taking, an intense 3 months, but then 2 months of polishing.
Yeah, but the whole strategy kind of, just right at the outset of this, was we knew that we had an audience that wanted to see this film, and we knew that we could make a film that they would really like. But our main goal, our ultimate goal, was, can we make a film that not only they would cherish, but also that a broader audience could relate to and it could resonate with. And as the movie, kind of came to fruition and started to evolve, we started seeing that movie that perhaps other people could relate to. And we kind of showed it around to a few people, and it seemed to strike a chord with them as well. So it kind of gave us the confidence to kind of pursue a festival and to think that would be a good way to go. Because we always had self-distribution kind of as our base plan, but we were kind of open to this whole other world that we should give a shot. And so kind of based on that thinking, we ended up submitting to Sundance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many filmmakers believe that Sundance is the golden ticket, and many base their distribution strategies around a Sundance premiere that never happens. What kind of expectations do both of you have going in here?
I think we're open to a lot of things. We actually had sort of a whole distribution plan set up before we found out. doing a self-organized tour, doing a lot of the amazing things that Gary Husett has done, the creator of Objectified, Helvetica, and Urbanized. He's done incredible things on his own. And we totally took a page from him and took a page from the indie game developers that are in the film. They do digital distribution on their games, and they're doing incredibly well. And so we had devised a plan prior to Sundance, and then Sundance happened, and everything sort of got put on hold. So we're going in there like thinking, if we can get a broadcast deal or something, that would be awesome. But if things don't suit our goals of having this online as fast as possible, then we may not go with those traditional type deals. It really depends.
Yeah, so like the base thinking going into Sundance is that we had this kind of self-distribution model that we were very happy with, but we know that there's a whole bunch of opportunity that could kind of either augment it or replace it or just kind of
like propel the film to an audience beyond what we think are sort of target audiences or our niche audience. Because the film is sort of an emotional journey about people following their dreams, essentially. That's what it is. And I think a lot of people, even people who won't identify as gamers per se, will get something from it. And so it's reaching that broader audience that we don't necessarily have the ability to do. And so if there's somebody or a group that can do that, that would be super exciting. But at the same time, if nothing happens, we're okay.
When you went in to get these interviews from these various developers, what was sort of the essence that you wanted to capture? Like, what was the main thing you wanted to take away from each interview? To kind of humanize them, or what was the thing that you wanted to show?
I think we really wanted to show what the creative experience is like. And being creators, we know that there are ups and downs, and there are moments of vulnerability and feeling like you don't know what you're doing, but then there's also moments of inspiration. And being able to get intimate, real interviews from people was really important to us. We spent a lot of time with the people in the film. We got to know them over the series of like months. And getting their trust was a big part of what we did. We wanted to show them. We showed them stuff, like we would cut stuff to show them, like initially to say, we know what we're doing. We're going to treat your story with respect and treat it well at the same time. Yeah,
and when we showed them stuff, it wasn't so much to show them where their story is going, but it's more like to prove ourselves, actually, to say, you're in competent hands. Like we're not going to do a disservice to your story. Yeah. So we, like all interviewers, you do a ton of research. You research both, what you want the person to say. Our film there's no narration. Our style is very much getting people to speak honestly and describe the experience, so that we don't necessarily need to use narration and things like that. So you create a question line to get that. But also we were there a lot. Like we were really there during crucial moments, and in those moments, I think by that time we felt really comfortable with them and comfortable enough that they could describe what they were feeling like in the moment and not feel sort of reserved about it. Because, in the film, like, shit goes down. Like, things don't work out. They're in a position where we are, where they're on the cusp of spending, 2 years on something, and then stuff doesn't work out. And it's devastating. And we were really lucky that they felt comfortable enough to share that sort of disappointment and those sort of things. Because if someone was filming me right now going through all this, I would be incredibly guarded.
Well, that was my next question, because now that you're further along in this and you sort of have more writing on everything, you've gotten a ton of press and you've had 2 very successful, Kickstarter campaigns, and you're going to Sundance. How are you handling it? I know you said it seems surreal earlier, but sort of time-wise, emotionally, are you balancing another job with all of this?
Yeah, no other job for sure. Actually, when we started this, we were naive enough to think that we were going to be able to, because we did kind of commercial and corporate work before. We thought we could like bang off corporate gigs in between some shooting and all that stuff. But no, this movie has completely taken over our lives. But then in terms of the Sundance prep and all that, as soon as like the Sundance announcement happened, all of a sudden, immediately that day, we got 1,000 emails, 1,000 plus emails, and then the next day you get like 800, and then 500 the next day.
Oh my
gosh. It was completely crazy, and all these like really flattering emails from people that we personally felt like we had no right to talk to in terms of like industry stuff and ranking and all that stuff. And so it's a whole bunch of like really nice emails and some like opportunistic emails. Like I'm sure as there's companies out there that send you stuff to like every person who's in Sundance. And then a whole bunch of other just neat opportunities.
Wow.
And about 3 to 4 weeks since the Sundance announcement, that whole period was spent sorting through those emails and figuring out what we need to pay attention to, what we don't need to pay attention to, and kind of figuring out where the opportunity is in that, and just kind of organizing that stuff. And I think... Oh, just one sec. And I think one of the things that has... Sorry, there's a knock at the door.
Pizza delivery?
Sorry about that.
Not just emails, there's knocks on the doors as well. Wow. Yeah. So basically, we had like tons and tons. You have like this huge laundry list of things that you need to do in order to get prepared for Sundance. Technical things and promotional things, and just getting all your ducks in a row. And all like these 1,000 little things, I think, had this wonderful effect of distracting us from the epicness of the actual situation. So it felt numb, like it had this wonderful numbing effect. And now that we actually have taken care of everything, and this probably ended 2 days ago, we finally like crossed the last thing off our list. It's all sinking in, like that numbness is wearing off, and now it's time to be excited and freak out and all that.
When you're caught up in the logistics of like, printing posters, talking to sales agents, figuring out whether you want to work with sales agents, looking at contracts, that all seems really immediate. And so like the feeling of knowing that people are going to see our work for the first time has sort of been in the back burner, but now it's becoming way more present, for sure.
Just hearing that, I mean, we're really humbled that you would answer our email.
I know.
Somehow
really
Film Careers got through. So
it didn't go to the spam filter. I don't know what happened.
So we thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think it's interesting too because we're all we can read books and see videos from experts on what to do to get to that level, but we don't know what to do when it comes. And I think that's interesting that you've talked about how it's been very numbing because there's not really a roadmap for what to do when that success does come. And I'm curious, are there things you can recommend to other people who, if they're listening now and are going through it, or if at some time they do, how do you prioritize those emails? How do you deal with this whole flood of everybody wanting something from you?
If we had good advice, we could have had it. We ended up being very lucky to talk to a couple of filmmakers that in the doc space, just to get their advice, and that was Gary Cusitt and the filmmakers behind Marvin Call.
And then a couple other ones,
yeah,
too.
A couple other ones, too. Kings of Pastry, too. Yeah. And so we basically were bombarded with lots of opportunity, but I don't know. Like, I guess we come from a place where we don't really trust anybody. Mm-hmm. We've made the film just the two of us, and bringing on people that want to work with you now is scary. It's exciting, but you don't want to give up a piece of what you're doing. So we spoke to these filmmakers to get a sense of lay of the land, like really like who's good, who's not good, what should we do, what do you think we should do, what did you do?
What would you do different?
Yeah, what would you do different, and and all those sort of things. And I think I wish I would have had a month ago. Weird, it feels like a year ago. I wish I had a bit more perspective on some of these things. I think a lot of people in this world, because Sundance is so big and it's so quick, like it gets announced at the beginning of December, and then a month and a half later it happens. And if you don't have your business sort of side for Sundance set up, it's a lot of pressure. But these people are trying to put you in a position. They're great salespeople, and they want you to make a decision right away because that's what they're good at, getting people to make a decision right away on behalf of you. And so that was sort of, there was just a lot of stress.
Yeah. In those days following Sundance, we had, or following the Sundance announcement, we had probably about 3, 4, 5 conference calls a day to like different sales agents and different opportunities. And there was kind of like this overarching feeling with a lot of these people that if you don't make a decision quickly, you're going to blow it.
Yeah.
You're going to absolutely blow it, and this is your one chance, and you got to sign with us really quickly because time's a wasting. It wasn't that strong arm, but that was kind of the sentiment of it. And we ended up going with people that didn't talk that way because that's just kind of, we're pretty practical, pragmatic people, and we just knew that wasn't really the case. But there's like this overarching pressure that I think is somewhat real, but also somewhat fabricated because this whole experience, like the whole movie, is about people who are empowered by technology, empowered by self-distribution, and that's how we started this film. We were empowered by doing it ourselves, and we did absolutely everything up until that point ourselves. So we were kind of going into all these conversations thinking, we know that we can do X number of things ourselves, and that will lead to Y results, hopefully. What can these people offer us that we can't do ourselves? And the best advice that we got were from other filmmakers that told us, basically, like, you can do a lot of this yourselves. Like, some of these people can take you places that you can't go and that you'll benefit from, but a lot of it, you don't necessarily need them. Like, you can make calls and you can make deals yourselves. But so it was a really, that would be my biggest piece of advice is find other filmmakers that have been through it and just ask them questions. Because people like to share, like we like to share, and we know that next year or the years after that we'll happily tell anybody who will listen, like who are in a similar experience or similar situations, like what we went through.
Yeah, I guess talk to other filmmakers and realize that you have time to make a decision and you don't need to sign anything right away. And everything isn't as urgent as everybody's telling you.
It is urgent, but not that urgent.
But not that urgent.
Well,
yeah,
there you go.
For sure.
Interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like that was the way you did sort of the gut check as to who was legit and who wasn't, was how urgent was their pitch, and in slowing them down, you kind of shook out all of sort of the snake oil salespeople. Sounds like interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
but it is a fast timeline. We really had no idea what is all involved in going into Sundance. We didn't know. There's the schedule at Sundance is overwhelming. It's incredible, but it's looking at it right now makes me tired. But it's so exciting at the same time because this is what we've been working for so long. So it's I laughed with my friends the other day. It's like people get married to feel like they have attention in some ways, and and going to Sundance to me is like a big wedding every day, over and over and over again.
We are on the line with 2012 Sundance filmmakers James Swirsky and Lisanne Pajot. Their indie game, The Movie, premieres in 5 days on January 20th. And let's go back a little bit, or let's dive a little bit deeper into what is it exactly that you two do every day to become better storytellers and filmmakers?
Yeah, I don't know what specific we do, but I knew it was really important. We just kind of keep on working. We just keep on making stuff. For the past 8 years, maybe almost 10 years actually, I've been doing corporate work, and Lisanne has been doing stuff with me for about 5 years now, but before that she was at CBC broadcasting stuff. And a lot of times we were doing these gigs and we were doing these contracts that weren't ideal, they weren't exactly what you wanted to be doing, but they were work. They were work, and it got you, using a camera, telling the story, or making a point, using video and film. And we just churned out a lot of stuff. Some of it bad, some of it good, a lot of it bad actually. And it's just the past 10 years, it's been just an evolution of projects. Each project is a little bit bigger than the last, a little more ambitious, and you get better with each and every one. And it got to a point it's weird. I haven't picked up a camera since doing this movie for about 5 months. Yeah, there's a little shoot in between there, and that is. I'm going through withdrawal. I'm shaking. Because over the past 10 years, I would be shooting almost every week or almost every second week doing a different project, and it was just this huge volume of work that just kind of led and evolved into this point of where it felt right to do this movie.
I think we were pretty lucky in terms of when we got into filmmaking and making videos, and I worked in television. We came out when digital cameras, like the old, the video. It's weird to say old cameras, like video
ones,
XL, yeah, those type of cameras were available, PD-150s and things like that. And we were able to shoot and edit on that reality existed when I started in video when I was 18. And that was amazing that you could shoot and edit something yourself, because only a few years earlier, even working in broadcasting, you couldn't shoot on the SX camera, and you couldn't work the jobs are really segregated in that sort of world. But in the reality that we came up in, you could do everything yourself. And I think that's been really useful.
And just let us volume.
Yeah, and just led us to do lots of different things. Like the cameras that we use have changed, and our process has changed a bit. We still use Final Cut Pro, but we've just done a lot. There's a lot of different ways, I think, to get into filmmaking. Working on big productions, working your way up, and working on big feature films or big television shows. And we didn't do that. We just made stuff on our own over and over and over again until we got better. And I would recommend that to anybody who wants to get into filmmaking or video or television, is just to make stuff. It's so exciting now that you can make stuff and put it out on Vimeo and get feedback from other people making stuff. Before, you would have to, go around in film festivals with your short film to try to reach out to people and to improve on what you're doing. Now you can make stuff on your own at a very low cost. You just need the time to do it. And to be able to get that online feedback is awesome.
Yeah. And actually, going back to the storytelling thing, a lot of the commercial stuff was telling stories that we didn't necessarily want to tell. In a way, telling stories, where it wasn't our personal story, but it was being forced to work with someone else's message and do a really good job of it. Mm-hmm. And that practice that actually led to this wonderful skill set that once you did have that story that you wanted to personally tell, you knew how to tell it. You were just a better storyteller.
I think what James is saying is we've dealt with a lot of boring topics.
Yes.
and highly not very visual things to try to create programming out of. We've done things from construction to the breeding of Holstein cows. It's all over the place and stuff that we've done. And I think we feel confident now, or we just began to feel confident when we started the film, where we could make something out of nothing. And
then once you got something, you can make something out of something. It's great.
In the last 2 years, are you doing a lot of creative stuff or more administrative work, replying to emails? Is some of that creativity sort of been on the back burner a little bit because now you're doing more sort of the work of a marketer or of an agent or something?
We've been doing the creative stuff and the producing and the marketing simultaneously.
Have you? Okay.
We started shooting. We launched the project in May 2010. We were shooting all of our basically trying to build up a war chest of money so that we could actually take some time off to make the film up until September. Then we shot until we were on the road for
3-4 months.
3-4 months. Came back, did a little more editing in early 2011. And basically, we're editing and shooting up until the summer. And all simultaneously, we were trying to, release clips. We were releasing clips from the very beginning, cutting stuff, doing pre-orders,
answering every single. It was really important to us to engage audience really early and to engage them well. So we answered every single email that we got.
We've gotten bad at that lately.
Yeah, now it's getting a little overwhelming, but we still try to do as much as we could. When we'd answer every Twitter mention, every Facebook post, everything, and so it was kind of this whole holistic approach of making the movie and then also promoting the movie at the same time. Because it's kind of funny. It's led to this weird little thing online where people feel that this movie has been in the works forever, and it hasn't. It's actually been 19 months from our first start of production to actually delivering it. So it's actually a pretty that's a nice tight timeline. That's not bad at all. But online, it seems like they've been hearing about this movie for forever, and when you're online, it's like dog years, you know? Like, it's like 1 year is actually 7. So it feels like this has been like Avatar. But it's funny. Yeah, that's kind of been our experience so far. But everybody's been great about it.
You know, we can certainly relate to trying to get back to as many tweets and as many emails.
It's also been, because we were putting out extra segments throughout the production, it was actually really creatively motivating, because like, we could have made this and not revealed like a trailer or anything until we were done, but because we were able to sort of try things out through these sort of web pieces, and it also, you know, helped build an audience. It was great to get that feedback.
It was validating. It showed that we were kind of on the right track and producing stuff that people wanted to see, because we would put out these pieces that were reflective of, they weren't from the actual film, but they were reflective of kind of the, you know, tone and themes that we were approaching with the film. And people responded really, really positively to that. And that just kind of showed us that we were on the right track, for sure.
Yeah, and the pieces are excellent. You know, it's easy to kind of just go from one right into the next. You know, they're all well produced, beautifully shot. The music, you know, you guys talked about, you know, kind of working for someone else for so long, and then being able to sort of break off and do this project. What really enabled you to get behind this project? Because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to leave whatever world we're in and go into the creative world. What has enabled you guys to do that?
I think like you know, you take risks when you like change what you're doing. I was working at CBC for 6 years, and that was a risk for me to leave and start doing our own stuff. And our own stuff was, we did some small TV series stuff, and we did a lot of corporate videos, and that was a bit of a risk. And then that started to grow, and that started to become more comfortable working for other people. And we were getting to a point where we felt really good about it, and we started to make the money that we wanted to make, and then we stopped to take on this project. And I think, like, back a year and a half ago, we just had this confidence that it was going to be good. And not everybody saw what we saw in it, but we knew that the content was really exciting, and the stories of the people were amazing, and these guys were inspiring themselves. Like, they are like, you know, a lot of people that are likely listening to this, they're, you know, 1 or 2 people working on projects that they're incredibly passionate about, and they're achieving amazing success through the internet. And watching them was like watching what we hoped to be. Like, we were shooting with them, and then 6 months later we hoped to be where they were at, or we could relate to the feelings that they were going through. So I think the content was really motivating. But we saved a lot of money to do this. We did a lot of work. We kind of killed ourselves, like, trying to get everything done so that we could start the project. So we saved a lot of money. The Kickstarter was a giant motivation. Having, you know, hundreds of people online give you money on a project that you hadn't really started, that was hugely motivating and really validating that there'd be an audience there for it in the end. And I think that's probably a huge factor for us, sort of giving up an income for the past year to do this. Yeah.
I'm wondering, too, what parallels do you see between the indie gaming world and the independent filmmaking world in terms of the world sort of at large, and then also with the artists in each of the worlds? What are some of the parallels that you see?
Oh yeah, it was uncanny. Actually, that was one of the things that drew us to this project, was that we saw so much of our own experiences in these guys, because it's basically, we're 2 people using very accessible technology, working on something by ourselves at home on our computers, and they are teams of 1 or 2 people with very accessible technology working on their vision and then releasing it to the world. And it was completely, you know, like a similar vibe, and it's both industries seem to.
Yeah, like I think the creative experience is very similar. Like we're doing a doc, so we're not necessarily creating a whole world, we're capturing a world, but there's all these decisions and thoughts and values and stuff that you put into it, and it's an incredibly personal film, even though it's not about us, it's about 4 other people. And that's the same thing that they were putting into their games. Like, they were making decisions and choices as a way to reach out to people and share their story through their games, even though their games are about things like cubes of meat and, like little guys with fez hats. But it seems trite and weird, but they are very personal games, and they're trying to be understood, and they hope other people understand them through that. So the creative experience is similar. The sort of the market conditions that we're both in are similar. What's exciting about what the world of indie games is that it feels like they have massive audiences. Like, it's incredible the kind of feedback and fan base that these guys have. You guys may not know Edmund and Tommy and Phil and John, but in the video game world and in that space, they're rock stars.
Oh, wow.
They've got, there's people that, like, every time that they say something, it becomes a news story in the gaming world. And they have such big followings, and it's incredible, the sort of world that exists, and we get into that in the film. It's a little different than indie film, I think, in that respect, because there is this online fan audience.
So in that regard, which artists have a better shot at sustaining their careers, gamers or filmmakers?
I think it's anybody that can make money at what they do and fund their next project. Really, I think it's either or.
Go ahead, James.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, I was just agreeing.
Well, I'm wondering, with these developers, do they have day jobs outside of, like, some project that they'll work on, hoping that it catches on? Or, I mean, how does that all work?
Some do. The developers in the film don't. They like to create a game, like the games that they're making that are released on Xbox and Steam and PS3 and Wii and stuff. It's like when you're two people making a game, like if you're two people making a film, it's all encompassing. So all of these guys are sacrificing, working at a bigger company, making $200,000 a year as a programmer to make their own game. So they're in sort of the same boat in terms of having to, get rid of that stable income to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think to do anything that's incredibly personal and incredibly well done, it just takes you over. And it seems for a lot of these games, like just having that day job just doesn't seem like an option. Just because you have to dedicate your life to it. It doesn't seem to be an option.
We wouldn't know anything about that. Well, are some of these people living off credit cards? I mean, to sustain themselves? Are they doing that, or are they able to eke out a little bit of money and maybe get an upfront deposit or something? How do they?
It's all personal risk. It's all like credit cards and only living off of $10,000 for 4 years. That's what we see in the film, is the massive sacrifice that they make to get their stories out through their games. They could have potentially gotten publishers and advanced deals or that sort of thing, but they wanted to make their own vision and not necessarily have anybody to answer to, and that's the risk you have to take to do it. In the same way that we did have all the Kickstarter people, but it's not like they had a creative say in what we were doing. We just had a responsibility we have a responsibility to give them a good film. But that's the same position that we're in. We could have taken on investors earlier on, but we didn't want to. We didn't really need to.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah, because we own the equipment and we own the skill set, and we didn't need to hire anyone. So the actual costs were pretty low. And that's the same with independent development. Like you just need a computer and your brilliant mind and a great vision, and that's enough to get you started. And I know in talking to Edmund, one of his secrets to success is, like, you ask him, like, how he did this, and he's like, I'm really good at being poor. Like, if you want to be an indie game developer, you need to be okay with it.
And now he's a millionaire.
Yeah, but you need to be okay with, like, living in that one-room apartment and eating ramen noodles for a long, long time and not having that guarantee of success. And as long as you're okay with that, you'll be fine, because you'll make your game, and it will be what it'll be, and you'll get it out there.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just wondering, though, how do they sort of compartmentalize that stress? Because for me, money stress is like one of the worst stresses that there are. But I totally get that, being kind of, saving up and having a cushion. But how do they sort of compartmentalize? Were there parts of the film that showed them stressing out about money and not knowing where?
It's an incredible, stressful existence. And we would attest to that as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there is compartmentalization. Like I don't think they do separate it from the experience. I think it's all this one big lump of experience, lump of like creative experience, financial stressors, everything. Like it's not. It's just this big, messy, creative experience process.
Anxiety.
Interesting.
No. Yeah, I wish it was easier. Like, I wish it would be easier. And I think, in history, artists have had patrons and stuff like that and have been able to do their own stuff. That doesn't exist anymore, or as much. So, it's...
And we are on the line with Indie Game, the movie filmmakers.
Lisanne Pajot and James Swirsky. Can you guys take us a little bit into your production process? Because we love the look of everything we see that you guys do. For instance, we've been talking about Santa Cruz a little bit. What was that shoot like? Do you meet with the game developer first and then go and shoot footage around the pier? And then in terms of the interview, like how long do you set up the lighting and frame the composition for the interview, and how long are you sitting down for? So can you take us a little bit into the process?
Sure, yeah. I think going into that shoot, probably about 2-3 weeks before the shoot, we did like a telephone pre-interview, and we were careful enough to go into detail so that we know what we're talking about, and so that we know that there's a story there, and that we feel good about doing the interview, but not to go into too much detail as to have them tell you their entire life story on it, and then kind of feel like they're repeating themselves once you do get to the interview. And then, so when we got to Santa Cruz, we were shooting in Edmund and Danielle McMillan's apartment, and Tommy Rushmead's partner worked out of there too. And it was a super nice place,
like 200 square feet.
Yeah. So we got there, and as soon as you get there, you're completely invading their private space in a way. Like they're very cool about it, and they're very awesome people, but you're like living with them because there's nowhere to go. So we tried to keep lighting at a minimum, and we shot using Canon 5D Mark IIs, and those things can do remarkable things with very little light. So a lot of it, I think the majority of the stuff that we shot interview-wise for Santa Cruz was one key light, and then just kind of using either the window as a fill. I can't remember how it went, but I think we used the window actually was the key light, and then we just kind of filled it in.
And then, so we would go in and we shot interviews with them, but we shot interviews for 2 days. So we interviewed, I think, Edmund for 4 hours, Tommy for a couple hours. We interviewed the two of them together over 2 days. We interviewed the wife, and then we shot them working. And we shot his wife working. We also did some scenes outside in Santa Cruz that didn't actually make it into the film, of them out and about in Santa Cruz. We would shoot exteriors. James would wake up at like 5 a.m. to get dawn shots. We'd also get shots, in sort of the magic hour at the end of the day. The whole experience would have been 4 or 5 days, and that was basically got us our first test piece, which was 5 minutes. And a lot of it is very similar. And then when we got into like actually following action and following drama, there was a lot of pre-planning. As much as it sounds weird to say that when you're following, something in the moment, there's a lot of pre-planning going into when you're going to interview them, when you're going to interview and ask certain questions, just so that, cinematically you're asking different questions in different scenes. And then sometimes it doesn't work out, and you just have to work with it as is.
Yeah, and like every shoot had a shot list that we hoped to get, and every shoot had Q&A list of sentiments that we hoped to capture, and we usually got what we wanted. But there was always stuff that would pop up and surprise us, or there was always stuff that we couldn't get, and there were always it's weird, like so many shots that I thought were throwaway shots when I was filming them, just because I had extra time, ended up making the film. We just filmed as much as we could.
Shooting more is better, totally. And then things like all the surprises like, hopefully you guys will see the film when it's done, but
there's
like,
no doubt about it.
You have this amazing feeling when things that you didn't expect happen. It's an incredible filmmaking experience to be witnessing something totally unexpected. And it makes the movie all that much better.
Oh, very cool. Well, it sounds like an amazing ride, and I feel what it must be like to be in their shoes, just to have this like flood of just emails and opportunities. We've been speaking with the minds and creators behind Indie Game, the movie, Lisanne Pajot and James Swirsky. And if you are attending Sundance next week, make sure to check the site for the various showings.
Yeah, it has a number of showings. And we kind of said before we came on the air, we were going to sort of live out the Sundance experience through you guys. You guys are certainly able to do that for us and much, much more. It's been such a pleasure having you guys join us on Film Courage today.
Thank you.
And I just don't see how any independent filmmaker, I don't see how you can get by this year without seeing this film. I'm dying to see it.
Yeah, I am too.
I think we all have to see this one. So that's our sort of like...
That's our call to action.
Yeah, that's our call to action. Everyone listening, you got to see this movie. And you can hear that Lisanne and James are very accessible. You can find them on Twitter at Indie Game Movie, Lisanne Pajot and James Swirsky. Check their website to find out how to spell the names.
Yeah, and the film's website is indiegamethemovie.com, and also on facebook.com/indiegamethemovie.
We're wishing you guys the best this week at Sundance, and we're looking forward to all the good things we're going to hear, and we certainly appreciate you guys taking the time today, especially in this time crunch when you have so much going on.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Oh, yeah, no, happy to do it. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
You guys are the best. I feel like this is part one. I feel like we need a part two coming.
We left a lot of questions on the table, and
we left a lot on the table.
I really want to find out more. But
we'll hit you up. And if Sundance doesn't take you into a whole new realm, and if you're still up for it, we'd love to get you back on post Sundance for part two.
That sounds great.
Yeah, no, we'd love to.
All right.
And a big shout out to our guy, Ronan Rosner. He put in a ton of overtime this week on filmcourage.com, so we certainly appreciate your efforts, Ronan. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Ronan.
Yeah. Next week, we will be joined by the Vicious brothers, Colin, Minahan, and Stuart Ortiz. We will talk to them about their film Grave Encounters, which world premiered at Tribeca in 2011, as well as their love for paranormal subject matter and more.
For more info on this 25-year-old filmmaking duo, please visit theviciousbrothers.com.
And thank you again for hanging out with us. Until next Sunday, have a great week.